Hello, my name is Danny Blank, and today we are going to continue on the theme of extending the growing season. And in this session, we plan to discuss fruits, and fruits are incredibly special to us and play a key role in helping farmers move toward year-round production and truly extending the season. I want to begin by just discussing some of the reasons that fruits are so important. Fruits provide diverse food options. In some cases, they add oil and energy. Fruits are an excellent source of nutrition. They help generate income. Fruit trees, when you have multiple species represented on the farm, provide food throughout the year. So fruits can play a key role in helping people through difficult times. And so they improve food security. Fruit trees in general are perennial. Fruits are perennial, so you have extended harvests year after year. And they're just very important in the overall farm system to move towards more sustainable food systems. And fruits enhance the quality of life. There's something incredibly wonderful about sitting down to a bowl of grapes or a slice of mango or a glass of refreshing passion fruit juice. Fruits take the edge off the day. They bring a pleasure and smile and completeness to the most common moments. And we see how important they are to our Father in heaven who created all these marvelous fruits for us to enjoy. He reveals much of His glory and fullness through fruits. You see this represented in the tree of life. We see it first appear in Genesis 2. And then we see it again at the last chapter in Revelation, this tree of life. Fruits reveal abundance. You see this in a mango tree or a mandarin tree that's just heavy with fruit. You see this principle of abundance represented there. It's glorious to see that. And God uses fruits to describe His own character and the character He intends for each of us. He wants to see joy and peace and love and gentleness, like fruits hanging on us, full and sweet, that others can come and see and taste the goodness of the Lord. And this is the abundance intended for each of us, this fullness, this pleasure and completeness in the Lord. Our Father in heaven loves fruits. He created so many of them, different colors, sizes, all kinds of marvelous fruits. And the tropics have an incredible amount of diversity and abundance of fruit species, far more than you would find in the cool climates. So diversifying with fruits is another means for farmers to truly extend the seasons and move toward year-round production. And this is what we've seen here at the Echo Farm. We have all kinds of collections. We have a roots and tuber collection, vegetables, beans, forest and forage species. But few collections that we have here bring as much enthusiasm and pleasure as our fruit collection. We have around 100 species of warm climate fruits planted on our farm, some bearing for several months at a time. And the amazing thing is that over the course of 365 days in a year, we can go out and every day taste from at least 5 different fruit species. They may be the same fruits for a period of time, but we can at least sample from at least 5, and there's times of the year where it's much more. It's just a great way to take the edge off the day and grab a star fruit on the way to working in a field. And as much as there's great diversity that's available to us, as I see it here on the Echo Farm, it's really unfortunate that there's this striking absence of fruit diversity represented on homesteads and in yards and on farms. Once again, this abundance is rarely realized. So in this session, we're going to look at fruits in a little detail, at least show you several species, some of the common ones, as well as the less common ones. We don't have time to go into great detail to discuss the uniqueness of each, but know that each of these is special and has the climate that they will do best in. Some will thrive in one and not well in another. We will finish this session by discussing ways in which fruit resources can be improved in a region. And I hope at the end of this session, you will at least be encouraged to consider fruits as a key role for extending the growing season in the yard and on the farm. I want to start by showing again some pictures here from other countries, and you see this hillside that's just completely barren. It's missing so much. It could have so many beautiful things represented on it, forest trees. It could be in a fruit orchard, something to cover it from that hot sun. You see the same bare ground and exposed earth in this village scene. That too is really sad because people are here every day. This is where they live and have their being, and there's a sad absence of fruits. And then here you see in a town, again, where it's really dense with people, and the fruit trees are highly underrepresented. But you can see, just in this collage of fruits in this picture, that how beautiful the diversity is that is available and can be brought to farms to just really increase the quality of life. I've visited one of the poorest countries in the world, Congo, and yet I've seen in parts of Congo where there's been a lot of work with fruit trees in the northwest, village homes just surrounded by fruit trees. And it's amazing and impressive the contribution they've made there during the times of war to help people get by. And so you can see even in some of the poorest countries of the world where people have really stewarded their land well and brought in these diversified food options. I visited a project in El Salvador where people were displaced by a serious earthquake and were moved into a very dense environment. And not only was it a building project for improving people's, giving people a new home, but they increased their backyard production. And so you saw in their yards fruit trees planted, and it was a great sight to see. And I've also visited places where there's been programs to improve people's orchard production, where they're given access to superior fruit trees. In this case, you see a farmer with a grafted citrus tree, and he's stewarding it well, taking excellent care of it. And farmers who were wiped out by Hurricane Mitch when that devastating storm came through in Nicaragua, and converting now their farm over to highly profitable crops, in this case, grapes, which was a really unique surprise for me to see in traveling through Nicaragua, to see a farmer really succeeding well with a very profitable option like grapes. So now I want to move into showing you some pictures of individual fruit species. I want to start by talking about the most common fruits. We can't overlook what's already there. There can always be improvements made, and one of the most common fruits you find represented throughout all the tropics is the mango. It is a true gift from God, a fruit that brings a lot of people pleasure and gets people through some difficult times, as it bears usually into starting in the dry season in so many places. There's a lot of variation in a fruit like mango. And there are varieties of mango that will bear exceedingly late. You can have a mango season that can be 4 to even as much as 6 months in its harvest window. And this can be incredibly important for those people, especially an early mango or the very, very late mangoes. I visited in northern Nicaragua, a place where they built a hotel around a mango tree. And they wouldn't even sell us the fruit because the owner was so proud of this tree, and it was for family and friends, and it bore earlier than the most of the mangoes in the area. And just shows the significance of what one variety can do, even with a common fruit like mango. Another fruit species, very common, avocado. And this one has an incredible contribution to the family because it brings oil and energy. And so you get that fatness in this fruit. It's like butter, and it's a fantastically healthy, nutritious fruit. And so it provides income and just a high quality food. And because avocados do not come true from seed, when you plant the seed, it is not identical. It's not the same as its parent. There's incredible variability, incredible change. It's with each seed that's planted. And so you don't know what you're going to get, but as a result, there's often varieties of avocado that have really different bearing times. And so you can have, in our case here in Florida, we have about 10 months from the first seasoned avocado, the one that comes first at the end of May for us here, to ones that go into April. And it's fantastic to see this diversified option that comes with just one species, avocado. And that is just such a marvelous way to bring in this extended seasoned fruit. Another common fruit that I just want to mention, just because it is so enormously productive, and that's papaya. Everywhere I travel, it seems, I find papaya. But it's something that I think because it's everywhere, people have a tendency to not plant it as much as they could. At Echo, we try to plant it every year on the farm. Papayas have a productive life that is different than a tree. They can live 20, 25 years, and often you come into a village and you'll see a tree that is a papaya plant. Really, they're not trees, but it's so tall, and it's hard to get the fruit, and they fall to the ground, and the birds get them. Their main productive window is 2 to 3 years. That's when you can really capture a lot of productivity. And so I encourage farmers to think of papaya like a vegetable or a short-lived perennial, even though it can live many years. So we encourage this annual planting. Put it as part of the annual cycle, and you will see that you can capture much more income possibilities and food options because there are very few fruits. In fact, I think it is one of the highest yielding fruits in all the world per square area. I've looked and tried to research what can outcompete papaya, and it is one of the absolute highest that God has made to bear fruit in a given area. Bananas, again, another common fruit that has such a valuable contribution because at the green stage, it can be a belly filler. It can be that carbohydrate. When you harvest the bananas green and boil them, it's such a fantastic food. I worked for a summer in Puerto Rico, and that was on a banana farm, and that was what I was served very commonly as my energy for the day. Was given green banana. But then, of course, the beauty of banana is that it can be ripened and turned into a dessert fruit. And this adds a great pleasure to the day, and it has so many uses in the way it can be prepared. But there are many ways to improve the production of banana that I just want to mention briefly. And one of those is just to use an incredible amount of organic matter around the base of bananas. It is a significant way to increase the water availability during dry spells. So mulching bananas, I've seen it over and over again, the dramatic impact it has, if you are in an area where there's a long dry season, it is dramatic. The difference it can make by piling and heaping up organic matter around the base of it. Most trees can't handle that high amount piled up against the trunks, but banana can handle, a half a meter of material piled up around its base. And you can see that in some of these pictures. Another way for increasing banana production is in some areas where you have well-drained soils is to trench plant them or pit plant them in holes. I've done this in the Bahamas. I've still yet to see higher production of bananas than what I saw in the Bahamas in one of the dry areas where water was taken off a shower and brought into a pit of bananas that we planted deep into this pit, and we just piled the organic matter in this pit, and the production of bananas were so high. I mean, from here all the way down to the ground, it was just unbelievable. It was 110, 115 pound bunches multiple times. I don't know in kgs what that is quickly off the top of my head, but it was fantastic. Again, deep planting of bananas. They handle that where the water is concentrated, where the organic matter is concentrated. It is a fantastic way to improve banana production in the small-scale farming system. I want to talk now about some lesser-known species. There are so many fruits, as I mentioned, that you hardly find in the tropics, and yet because they come from a different part of the world, say I'm in a country in Africa, it's very rare to find some of these fruits that might be native to, say, Southeast Asia. And so I just want to show some fruits from different countries that can grow incredibly well in other places. One of my favorites is jackfruit. It is a highly underutilized fruit, and it is considered the largest tree fruit in the world. It's enormous. And I have some beautiful pictures here to show it. I was visiting Congo some years ago, and on one tree I counted over 70 fruits. And that may not sound impressive, 70 fruits if you've never seen jackfruit. But when each fruit weighs 6 or 7 kgs, it's a phenomenal number. It's unbelievable what you can achieve in yields. These large fruits, they can get huge. And the beautiful thing about jackfruit, it's a great tasting fruit, but again, you can eat it green, and so use it as a cooked vegetable and get some starchy benefit from it. But you can also ripen it, eat it fresh. Dried fresh is phenomenal. It's waiting for somebody to take that and run with it. It's a fantastic dried fruit. Yet to see it sold in marketplaces that way, but I'm sure it is somewhere because it's so good tasting. One of my favorite dried fruits. But one other fantastic quality about it is the edible seeds. There's these giant seeds in the fruit, and they're delicious. You boil them, and they soften like a nut, and they're a high-protein seed. So I just want you to consider jackfruit. And if you've had a bad experience with jackfruit, because there are some high latex, some sticky ones that when you cut into them are very sticky, there's many varieties out there now that are not sticky. We brought a jackfruit into a village in Guatemala. We had to take a boat way up into a river, and we brought a jackfruit from a farm that we had gotten from a friend of mine, and we brought it into this village. And these people had never seen jackfruit before, and they hovered around this fruit. The children and the women, they were just so taken back at this new fruit. And they were in a great climate for it. I mean, they had plenty of rainfall that would be suitable for it. And we cut it open, and it was just delight as the children just just snacked into this giant jackfruit that you can see in some of these pictures here. Star fruit is another one I want to just mention. I feel like star fruit is awaiting prominence. It's this fruit that is it is mostly been promoted in the sour types. The sour types are the ones you mostly find, but there are many sweet types out there that are fantastic. They have multiple bearing seasons, and you can prune them in a way to increase even more production. Now I just want to just show you just some pictures, just to show you some options. I know we don't have time to go into detail, but you can see these different fruits, Canistel and Rolenia and Adamoya, custard apple. It's fantastic what is possible. There's a whole group of fruits, Pulasan and Rambutan, lychees that are another great source of delicious, delicious fruits, each with its own climatic preference, but they're often missing on farms where they would do really well, and you can likely find one of these. They're like cousins. They're related, and some do well at higher altitudes like the lychee and the longan. Some do better in the lowlands like the rambutan and the pulasan. And then there's the other relative, the canep, or Spanish lime it's called. It's canepa that is does well in the drier places. So it seems like there's a fruit for every climate there. You see Santal here, the Acerola or Barbados cherry. Pitaya is becoming increasingly popular as a commercial fruit option for people. You can see that fruit here. I mentioned grapes. There's this new fruit. It's not a new fruit. It's fruit that's been around and used widely in Africa because it's native to Africa, the jujube. And yet it's mostly the small types that have been promoted, but there is this really large, crisp, sweet apple version of it that is being promoted widely now. And so I encourage people to try that as an option. There's this whole group of fruits that we call the minor fruits that are often real small, and we may overlook them. But it's amazing what can happen when you start into you're in a place where you're trying to promote fruits, and people may be reluctant because planting fruit trees is not part of the culture there. And so people need to see some kind of success early and not wanting to wait several years. And so one fruit, we call it peanut butter fruit. It tastes like sweet potato and has the texture of peanut butter. You plant the seed, it grows vigorously, and in 1 year you're eating these really sweet fruits. And where they were introduced in this one area of Central African Republic, it gave people great excitement and hope to keep planting other fruit trees, which would have even more significance because they're larger and have more production than the small shrub, the small tree, peanut butter fruit. But it's what kind of planted the seed in people's minds that, yes, I don't have to wait. My children will, only my children or grandchildren will get to eat fruit. It's not that way. There are so many fruits that will bear in a short time. So there are so many options in fruits that are available to people. And I know it can be frustrating seeing pictures of all these beautiful fruits, and many of you may not have tasted these. And you'll have to take my word for it that so many are excellent. So how do you get started? How do you get started with fruits? I would just say that it is a little different than some of the other things I've talked about, like with fencing or starting with woodlots. It may take an organization of some kind to help you get started if you are going to do a significant introduction of fruits to an area to truly improve its fruit resources. There are fruits that are propagated by seeds, and you can get some of these seeds at ECHO, like jackfruit. You can write to us, and we can provide small trial packets for free of jackfruit and canistel and a few other fruits. But a lot of the fruits are propagated vegetatively, and that's a term used to say that they're not started by seed. And the reason is because you have to maintain the superior traits, the characteristics of that fruit are maintained when it's propagated by a little stem. It's the same piece then. It hasn't gone through a seed and reproduction in that way. So you have to often buy plants or have them transported as live plants from one area to another. And that's just one example why working with fruits can be challenging. I don't want to discourage you from trying to obtain superior species, but know that there is some work ahead of you if you really want to significantly work towards improving a region's resources. I just want to begin a discussion with you on if this is something that you really want to do is work towards improving a region's fruit resources. Just kind of run through like an outline of ideas to consider, the process that you might follow if you're wanting to do a significant improvement. It begins with planning. The planning stage is really that stage where you are discovering your options. And I just want to say that it's really important to just see what is available around you. You can consult with groups like ECHO, and we will give you lots of ideas. That's something we have done a lot of work in is fruit trees. So we have a lot of material available, things written about fruits and tables that show which climate they do best in, whether they're tolerant to drought or salt or things like that, some difficult conditions you may be in. But I want to encourage you to think about what is available in your own country. There are government institutions that often have fruit collections. There's international organizations, botanical gardens. There are local NGOs, non-government organizations, and there are commercial enterprises. And then you need to look and see what kind of local discoveries can be made. Going to the market, and you see one fruit that is the first to appear always. This one avocado, it's the only one in the market. And maybe that can lead to a discovery of a variety that can be propagated on a wider scale. So take the time, carefully plan. Begin with those in-country resources. Don't underestimate the common fruits, the mango and the papaya and the banana, and their potential for improvement. You can think, again, about extending the seasons, those early and late varieties. You may be, for example, in an area where banana disease pressure is high, and it's that common fruit is grown, but yields are way suppressed because of black sigatoka disease or a disease like that. There are varieties that are resistant to the disease, and so you might be able to have significant improvement with new varieties. And then identify new species that have a high potential for improvement. And this just takes some homework, but this is things that you can do through networking with others and understanding how they'll do in a particular climate and altitude. One thing we encourage is if you're working as an organization on improving fruits and you have, and this is something you seriously want to do, is you can establish a small orchard that we call a foundation block or a fruit collection. And this allows for there to be a place where the fruits can be tested and evaluated and see how they do when planted in an area. I visited collections in Congo, a fruit collection center in Malawi. You see the citrus collection represented here. And this allows farmers to taste and see and evaluate how they do and what they would like in their fields. In Nicaragua, the group called World Relief has done a lot of work with fruit resource centers in bringing in some of the better and more superior varieties and testing them at different altitudes and climates within the country. and then bringing farmers in to evaluate those with them, and then from those introductions determine which ones they want to bring into propagation. So I just want to encourage that concept of fruit collection. And then observing and evaluating is much easier. You can see how something like strawberries, or maybe you try grapes and how they do. You can even do market studies and see, is this going to be economically viable? Because we want to teach people how to make a profit. Even on small scale farms, we want to teach profitability. This is a wonderful, wonderful thing that people can experience. It's a way to really realize and testify to the abundance that you're achieving when you can make it profitable. And this then leads to developing nurseries where you can propagate a large number of species. And I just have a few pictures I want to show you about some examples of some really good nurseries that I've seen. This one is in Malawi, where they propagated a high number of fruit tree species, and it just gave farmers access to these improved varieties. And some require special propagation, like grafting, and this is possible in these more specialized nursery settings. This is a great watering technique that I love it. I've done it now. We're just growing these nursery trees, and this is something that can be done at the home level as well, where you set the trees in a small depressional, and it's a fantastic way to conserve water during the dry season, as it was here in Malawi, where they're raising these guavas. And nurseries they don't have to be huge, they can be small. They are great sources of added income. I visited this nursery here in Malawi, and it's under the shade of these trees, and young trees can do well with shade, and it reduces their water requirements, and it slows the growth a little bit so that they're not as needy for fertility as much when they're in that shaded environment, and it's good for them as they would grow in the forest underneath the mother tree. And so a shaded nursery is a good option for people under trees. And then this leads to distribution of trees and promotion of trees. And with that comes the importance of teaching people how to care and plant for them. As you can see in this picture, just going over some of the basics in planting the tree so people have success. And then you can even teach people the trade of working with fruits, in terms of teaching them how to graft. And with that goes succeeding in the yards, strategies for doing that, maybe fencing strategies that we've mentioned in other talks, but how to build a fence for pigs or goats, or maybe that's not possible right away, and you just teach people how to protect individual trees. As you can see, this jackfruit protected by a fence built right around the tree itself. So I hope you are encouraged by all the ways that fruits contribute to our lives. They truly are ways of sustaining life. I've been in some of the most poor conditions I've ever seen, and yet been so encouraged. I was in Congo, where we were driving, and it was nothing but grassland. The trees had been removed, and we went way up on this hill. And it was the closest thing that I could ever imagine to a Garden of Eden. And we came in right after the war had ended, the civil war in that area. And what had happened in this area was 10 or 15 years before, some missionaries had gotten together and planted fruit trees in this village. And nearly every tree I saw, and it was full of trees, was a fruit tree. And it was so marvelous. People came out bringing baskets of fruits to us. And the children standing there, when I turned around and was meeting with the people in the village, I turned around and looked, and there was children eating star fruits, and it was just a marvelous, marvelous sight. And it just really, in the midst of the poverty, we were told that it was the trees that sustained them when the soldiers came through and occupied their villages. That it was the trees, because they couldn't plant their field crops. So we can even see how fruits go all the way into terms of sustaining lives and providing valuable nutrition. We talked about the ways they can add income to people, but especially how they can really bring smiles to our faces and pleasure. And I just want to end by saying fruits really offer us hope. I want you to look at this picture here where you see this man. This is in Central African Republic, and he's standing next to a jackfruit tree. It's a young tree, and it was already beginning to bear, and he was so happy with this new tree of his that has this large fruit. And you can really see, I think, in this man his excitement and the hope that this fruit represents. And that's just the beautiful blessing that fruits bring to us. And I just thank God for the gift of fruits, and I hope you are encouraged by the blessing that fruits are to us. I know this is a brief presentation, but I encourage you to seek out those people in your area that can help you get started with improving fruits in your area. And just to really network in your own countries to see what can be done. You can contact ECHO, and we can try to be of assistance to you. There's a lot of good information out there. And I hope you really see the valuable role fruits play in moving people toward year-round production, and especially how they improve lives. Thank you very much.